So, it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week was honestly a bit stale if I'm being completely honest, because we're at the point in the off-season when not a whole lot is going on, but thanks to you guys and your submissions, we still do have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 60% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Yo, and he says that the Clippers will find themselves playing in the play-in tournament this season because of the fact that Kawhi is going to miss most of the season recovering from his torn ACL. So yeah, Kawhi Leonard is set to miss most of or all of this regular season at the least, and that's a huge blow to the Clippers for sure. Kawhi has been one of the very best players in the league on both ends of the floor for a while now, and losing a player of that caliber is not exactly easy to overcome. However, let's not get carried away here. We literally just watched the Clippers play some amazing basketball in the playoffs after Kawhi Leonard went down with that injury by beating the 1-seed Utah Jazz in the second round to advance to the franchise's first ever conference finals. Then they gave the Phoenix Suns a very hard-fought battle in the conference finals series despite being undermanned. This offseason, they made sure to keep that core intact for the most part, with the only real change being Eric Bledsoe coming in with Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo heading out, which can obviously be argued as a lateral move or possibly worse, but they did bring back Reggie Jackson after the tremendous postseason run that he had with the team, and is already good enough to be comfortably in the playoff picture with that core. Paul George had a very strong bounce-back season, proving he could take over as the number one option and perform at an elite level, and barring any health issues, the Clippers are still one of the best teams in the Western Conference in my opinion, even without Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi was healthy last year, the Clippers would have been good enough to win the finals potentially, and without him, they were still a conference finals team. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Juan, and he says that with a proper team built around him, Ben Simmons would become a top 10 player in the NBA. Now, you all should know by now that I've been pretty high on Ben Simmons to a degree that is likely higher than most, and even after how everything has unfolded, I'm probably one of the last survivors on Ben Simmons Island, but even I'm completely over takes like this. Ben's an incredibly talented player that constantly gets in his own head and in his own way, by limiting himself and what he can do, by playing timid and afraid of the moment at times. That's a mental hurdle that's tough to overcome, and even if he does eventually learn to harness that confidence and play in non-stop attack mode like someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's still very debatable if his ceiling would be a top 10 player at this point. Don't get me wrong, Ben at this point right now is very underrated because of how negatively he's viewed after the Hawks series, but his weaknesses are definitely still glaring holes that need a lot of work. However, with that being said, there are pieces of this take that are somewhat accurate. By this, I mean that there is some truth to the statement that the Sixers haven't exactly done well properly supporting him and building around him and even Joel Embiid as well. Last season was the most ideal of a rotation the team had in a while after they brought in Seth Curry and Danny Green to bomb threes all game and space the floor for them, but the Sixers have never really had another capable ball handler in the team's rotation for Ben Simmons' entire tenure with them, and instead of emphasizing pushing the pace where Ben is at his best, they've focused a lot more on slowing things down. Ultimately though, these aren't excuses for his weaknesses, and his improvement is entirely on him and no one else. But right now, him developing into a top 10 player is just not looking very likely at all. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Gary, and he says that Andrew Wiggins is winning the Most Improved Player award this year and developing into an all-star to help the Warriors get back to the top. Alright, I'm officially putting my foot down on these takes. Wiggins is now going into his 8th season in the NBA, and every single year we've heard the whole, "this might be the year Wiggins takes that leap" take. And quite frankly, we need to just put these to rest once and for all. Andrew Wiggins is who he is, and that's completely okay. He's not an all-star caliber player, he never will be an all-star caliber player, and we need to stop this yearly ritual of thinking he'll become an all-star caliber player. Does this mean Wiggins is a bad player? No, of course not. Wiggins may not ever have lived up to that otherworldly hype from the time that he got drafted, but he has definitely improved on some of the weaknesses that he had in the past, and while the stats and numbers may not show it, he's probably more suited to help a contender now than he was just a few years ago when he was scoring more points. Wiggins used to be someone with a reputation as being a black hole offensively who never looked to pass and shot a lot of low-quality attempts that resulted in bad offense and inefficient play, and defensively, he was a bit of a mess as well, but especially last year, he took massive strides shooting a career best from both the field and from three, while also elevating his play as a perimeter defender, playing with more effort. We can still applaud Wiggins and the strides he's taking without putting this huge burden of expecting him to become an all-star, and that's why I think we need to put those expectations to rest. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from the King of Fedoras, and he says that the Eastern Conference has finally passed the Western Conference as the best conference in the NBA because it has way more title contenders this season. His reasoning was pretty long, so I didn't read out the entire thing, but that was the gist of it. The West has definitely been the more talented conference top to bottom for a while now, and they do typically produce more title contenders every year, but lately, the East has been improving with the league having more of a balanced mix of contenders from each now. One thing that he did say in his reasoning in the take that did strike me as just flat out wrong though, was that he thinks that the Lakers and the Warriors are the only two real contenders in the West this upcoming season, which I think is just flat out absurd. The Warriors' improvements are coming by way of getting a player in Klay Thompson back who hasn't played NBA basketball in 2 full years, along with a few new rookies who are definitely promising, but rookies usually aren't ready to produce impactful production to contenders right away. This sentiment is also disrespectful to teams like the Suns, who just went to the finals, the Clippers, who will eventually get Kawhi Leonard back to compete at the highest level, and the Nuggets, who have the reigning MVP and Jamal Murray's return on the horizon, amongst others too. I can get on board with the East probably being a bit better this year, but the reasoning behind this particular take given was just a bit of nonsense in my opinion. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you thought about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.